Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sunday on Focus on Liberia. Thank you for joining us and for wanting to know about the Liberian Studies Association. We know that it was short notice that we put it out, but thank you for joining us. Um, Today, we do not really have host and co-host. We have three eminent Liberian Studies Association members who will be telling you a bit about the Liberian Association and how you can get involved and about the upcoming conference. And we will start with Councillor Mohamedou F. Jones. We'll ask him to introduce himself, tell us how he got involved with the Liberian Studies Association and his current position. Councillor Jones?
Uh, Thank you, Jackie. I'm definitely a late arrival to LSA, but I'm really excited about the work that LSA does and its ongoing prospects. LSA is probably the largest repository of Liberian scholarship thinking in any single place. I Once I got involved with LSA, I became active, and eventually I was elected to be the parliamentarian, which position I currently hold. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, and maybe before we get to Sam, let's maybe talk a little bit about the LSA because somebody just said, what is LSA? So the Liberian Studies Association, the motto is Advancing Knowledge for Development. It's been in existence for 53 years. It's a nonprofit scholarly organization created to provide a means for effective cooperation among persons interested in furthering research in all scholarly disciplines. So we would encourage you to the website address is right up by the logo, and we encourage you to go there and read more about the LSA. And so now we will go to Sam, and Sam will tell us how he got started in the LSA. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I'm still getting used to being called Dr. Johnson.
Okay, Doc.
Well, I got involved with the LSA as a student, really, in 2008. But then I was in Ohio University as a graduate student and a former Peace Corps volunteer who served in Liberia, sending word at home. The biggest Liberian scholarly organization is meeting in Ohio, just about 2 hours drive away from Athens, where Ohio University is. And so that was how I got involved, sending an abstract reluctantly, I must say. And then it got accepted, and then that gave me the push to drive over to Toledo at University of Toledo, where I presented a paper, met the richest, like Councillor Jones has said. I mean, I was amazed by the amount, the volume of work that was being done in Liberia, the repository of the academic literature that is embedded within the organization. And ever since then, I've just remained an active member.
Okay, and like you, I heard about the LSA through one of the members at Cornell, and the first one was, I think I met them in Binghamton. That was the first one, and unlike Councillor Jones, who once he got into LSA, he became active. There was a lag between like 3-4 years. I was like, what's this before rejoining, and mainly on the encouragement of Dr. Dunn. So and I've never looked back, and I'm so grateful to be part of the Liberian Studies Association. So as we are moving along in the discussion, I want both of you to answer this question: why the LSA? What is its impact? What importance does it have to national development in Liberia?
Sam, I'll defer to you, Dr. Johnson.
All right, Councillor, thank you. The impact of the LSA, there is no way any country can advance forward without knowledge of itself. And knowledge of itself in this context means understanding your history, understanding your past, understanding your structures. How have you existed over the period of time? So, say, like the case of Liberia, what, 175, I think, if I'm correct? We're going into celebrating our bicentennial next year. The question remains, in as much as we are all excited about this long history of the organization, of the country, the question remains, what has been the experience of the country over these 175 years? How can we use that experience to continue to build, if not sustain, the gains that have been made? And so that is why knowledge becomes very, very important, because you can only begin to ask those questions or find answer to those questions if you begin to dig into the past. That means you are going back now to discover, to probe, to find new knowledge, new evidence about your existence that you can use now to inform your future existence. And that is why the LSA is so, so important. There is no way you can do a policy work outside of evidence. And the people who are best prepared to do that are what Dr. Don, I like the way he called it, thinkers, people who are trained to be critical thinkers, who are trained to ask hard pressing questions, who are not intimidated, who do not easily shy away from questions. They are always willing to go back to continue to probe painstakingly to find new evidence, new knowledge. And so that is why it is important to Liberia. It may go beyond Liberia. It could go to the African continent as a whole. So I will pause there and give Dr. Councillor Jones a chance.
Well, thank you. It is clearly a cliche, but not all cliches should be dismissed. That a nation that doesn't understand its history is bound to repeat it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say there are a lot of history of Liberia that we ought not to repeat. And one of the things that LSA does in its activities, through the conferences, through the journal, the Liberian Studies Journal, is where thinkers, to take a word from Dr. Johnson, come together and try to analyze, study, understand, and then share this knowledge about what has happened. Now, of course, the LSA also does prospective thinking based on an understanding of what has occurred. If one goes through the journal, which is widely available, even the ones going back 50 years, you can see that the collection of the various subject matters is very interesting. Some of the old journal articles, you can see where things were discussed that in some elements eventually came to pass. And so begin participating in the LSA. One good thing about the LSA is that you don't have to work for a university, for example, to get active. And I don't work for a university. I've never worked for a university to get active in it. The thing about scholarly thinking, it is not limited to a certain degree attainment, and so the more people that can become involved and engaged, I think the more active and effective LSA will become. It's 53 years old. There's no reason why LSA cannot continue for years and decades going forward.
And Counselor and Doc, a lot of times, especially on social media, we see a lot of emerging organizations. They're trying to find history, they're trying to do this. And I always say to myself, but these things are in the Liberian Studies Journal. A lot of times I see arguments or people saying, oh, I found this. And I said, it's in the Liberian Studies Journal. It's such a rich repository. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the articles that you can find in, and tell the audience how to purchase back issues of it, of which I have tons that they can purchase. But we are coming to the 175th birthday of Liberia. And a lot of people now are re-examining and debating history. We just had one about the purchase of Cape Mazzurado. We're still arguing about historical beginnings, and yet we're moving into the future. So when we say the Liberian Studies Association is a scholarly non-for-profit, and we say we advance knowledge for development, what role can the young people, because there are a lot of young people who are coming up, who either they're looking or they are adding to knowledge, or they think they've discovered something but they're in a vacuum. If we had a young scholar listening right now, what would we say to that person to make them want to join LSA and to contribute to the scholarly output?
I will go on that first.
Well,
I
let me
still,
let me let me start, Sam. Since um, so one of the things that one gets as you come into LSA, you certainly the standards are so high
Yes.
in terms of meeting that level of publishable or presentable content. So because not everything submitted is intended for publication. There we have presentations, and in the fact that to participate in this, you first have to submit an abstract where you get constructive critical feedback
Yes.
to assist you in thinking clearer, in perhaps suggesting paths that you could go to crystallize your arguments. Anyone, I think, clearly, if you're interested in academics, but even if your interest is to be effective in whatever line of work you want to do, critical thinking, research, and making and writing down your thoughts so someone who's totally unfamiliar with you can read it and understand it is something I think that would serve any person throughout the course of their life, regardless of what career they go into.
Yeah. Dr. Johnson?
I think Councillor Jones said it all. And especially for young scholars, I know sometimes we all get, at that stage, I too got intimidated going to a conference of PhDs and established professors whose work has been established and recognized in the field. But what I found was, and let me just share this joke about myself. 2008, my first LSA, I was on a panel with Dr. Broderick, who is respected when it comes to agriculture development and the literature of agriculture in Liberia, and Dr. Allen, not the former Minister of Information. This is the professor of history. Just some time ago, he was provost at the University of Liberia.
Yeah,
That was
William Allen.
yeah, that was a tough panel. I'm looking at the program like, where do I stand here? But the interesting thing was like Councillor Jones said, was that sitting on the panel with them and the exchanges we had, it helped me to think about the question that I was examining, which was food security, in a logical and organized fashion. And so you just can't just go all over the place talking about this stuff because you've read so much, but they were able to help me now to say, look, this is how you look at an argument, this is how you reverse it, this is how you package it. And that is why I think it's important, especially for upcoming scholars or for young scholars. The challenge is, where do we find information on Liberia? We always say, oh, there is not. No, there are tons of information on Liberia, except that we do not know where to find them. And one starting point is the Liberian Studies Journal. You find information there about Liberia's military history, Liberia's political history, Liberia's political development, economic development. You find work there by people whose name we've heard growing up. Talk about Antifa, for example, who did extensive work there, the former Central Bank of Liberia's governor. Just name the cream, those whom we consider the cream of the cream. And not just the Liberians, but people whom I call Liberianists, people who are not Liberians, but took research interest in Liberia that has helped us to build this volume of work. And you can find them in the Liberian Studies Journal in a very affordable and effective way. That is one place I go to start my own research issue. Once I have a research hunch, the first place I go to is the Liberian Studies Journal. Has anybody written about this question before? To what extent how am I going to go off this question? What new knowledge am I going to bring to the argument? Because that is what research is. I always tell students, research is not this big thing that is sitting somewhere that you have to be afraid of. Imagine a research like being at a cocktail dinner and you are having a glass of wine, mainly with your peers. And you just don't enter the conversation and start to talk. You listen to others who've been there before. You listen to the organization of the conversation before you come in now to add your own dimension, but conscious of the fact that other people have made their points. And so when you come to the Liberian Studies Association, it provides you that particular cocktail gathering of scholars that help you to think about your work and position yourself in the field that you choose to pursue.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we can be proud of is that the Liberian Studies Journal is the second oldest, right, journal, African journal in the United States. I think that is something that we can be proud of. Let us just look at some, since we kind of like move into the journal before we come back. So yeah, some of the articles that's in the most recent, right? The military regime in the search for national symbols, the case of Liberia under Samuel Doe by the late Yakuti Kashoni, the crucifix of Snobbery, critical and enduring lessons from election 2017, Moses Nangbe, and enhancing, sorry, I can't really see, but you all can see that I can read
enhancing older people's participation in the electoral process in Liberia. I see Sam Tobas Lewion, and I don't see the last authors.
Nina M. Silverstein, that's volume 44, 46, Mapping the National Integration, Electoral and National Development Landscape in Liberia by Dr. George Clay Kier Jr., The Environment and Economics in Liberia, Maurice Kofa, the National Elections Commission, the Supreme Court and Dispute Resolution in the 2017 Liberian presidential election, Augustine Kone, Econometric Analysis of Civil War and Economic Development in Liberia, Tewe Zewu Collins and Onumba Ben Lukongo, Highway Failure in Liberia, Basamuka Kone, Kai Bodolo and Augustus Moore, Traditional Food Security Management Regimes and Alternative. So you can see that we have a vast repository of documents. We have our own Muhammadu Jones, the law of unintended consequences. We have the president of the organization, Michael Wana, a comparative analysis of former traditional African educational system, the Bush School and former Western education in Liberia and Sierra Leone. So we see that all of these that we have a rich repository. Actually, I went looking for at some of the older copies of the Liberian Studies Journal, and you can see people have been disputing and debating Matilda Newport. And in 2007, Sven Hoso, Matilda Newport, The Power of a Liberian Invented Tradition. He has that. We have Recurring Patterns in Liberian Politics During the First Republic by Joseph Seguano. We have State Visit of Dr. William R. Talbot Jr., President of Liberia to the United States by the Embassy of Liberia, Washington, D.C., and then we have Peacekeeping and the Second Liberian Civil War, again by George Clay Kier. So you can see that when we say that the Liberian Studies Journal is a rich repository, we're not lying, and to both of you, one thing that I always tell my friends is that I never realized, until I became the secretary, how important the journal was. Really, I would go to the journal to do research. It was important. But the amount of libraries, the amount of people all around the world who have subscribed, we have over 100 institutional subscribers to the Liberian Studies Journal and over 90 individual subscribers, and when I keep getting all these letters, I'm like, man, what's wrong with these people? But it shows you the value that not only Liberians, but other people see in a journal. They want to do research, they go to the journal. The libraries, they all have, in 1990, there's You will not believe. I was looking, and in 1990, buy Timor, problems of bi identity in terms of my own experience by Timor. Social and musical responses to Islam among the Vi by Lester Months. So I have back issues, and we will tell you how to contact. So if you want back issues, it's $25, and I have them. So you can purchase them if you want. But really, I mean, I shouldn't preach to the choir, but I'm amazed at the wealth of information in the Liberian Studies Journal, and the editor is Dr. Emmanuel Orisi Jaffo at North Carolina State University. So just to put that out there, so you all can know. And if you send messages, you will also have the specifications of if you're thinking about submitting articles to the journal. So let's talk a little bit more now about the association. So the association, I mean, it stands by itself, but it's also a conduit for articles that go into the journal. You can submit your journals without going to the conferences, or you can go to to any one of the conferences, and then you say, you know what, I want to submit a journal. So we've been having a lot of conferences, a lot. So how would one get involved with LSA to say, okay, now I want to have a conference at my institution? Can you just walk us through? I mean, we know, but people might not know. So can one of you tell us how to go about doing that?
Go ahead,
Okay.
Sam.
Parliamentarian has deferred to me. So
Okay.
to host a conference at your institution, the first thing is that you requesting for your institution to host have to be a member of the organization. That's the very first thing. You must be a member in good standing. So then the next thing is you can write the association and say, look, I want to host LSA, say what? LSA 2022, 2023 at my institution. And we don't ask for too many things. What we ask for is institutional buy-in. Means you got to show us proof like an institution is in support of this request to host. And the reason for that is quite simple. When we come to institutions, we bring some cost to the daily operational cost of the organization. And so it means then that the institution that will be bearing that cost has to give us a guarantee. So like now we're going to Texas Southern University next year, where Josh Kia is. And so he wrote at the last convention asking to host. And in support of that, he went to his organization. TSU sent us a letter saying, yes, we are in support of Josh Kia's request, and this is what we can do. So then we begin to negotiate what portion of the cost LSA can cover and which portion do we leave to the institution to cover. So once we have that agreement, then the process goes forward. And one thing I want people to know is that we always take up the responsibility of the secretariat for the organization. So things like writing out the call for papers, receiving the call for papers, vetting the call for papers. We are willing to share that responsibility with the institution, but as a way of reducing the organizational burden on the institution, we take that up as an organization. And the reason for that too is our own way to encourage people, like we said, shared thinking, getting people to think about their own questions clearly. So we take up that responsibility to help supplement what is happening at the host institution. And so that is what we require. Just be a member in good standing, have the buy-in of your institution. And in this case, we are saying mostly academic institutions. We like to go to universities. So once you are attached at a university, depending on your level, once you have that influence, we are willing, once the institution gave us the buy-in, the proof of the buy-in, we are willing to come there. Because another thing you got to think about is that we're going to use rooms. So it's the only organization I can say, look, okay, we can give you this hall at this time. Because schools are always in session once we come to campus. And it's a way too, we encourage people, look, bring your students. You can't tell how many students who get excited about writing about Liberia just by listening in on a session. I've seen that 2 different universities we went to. one of our colleagues was teaching, he brought his class and asked him to write a reflection about the presentation for the day. And the student left from there and ended up writing a final paper about Liberia. It was because of the interaction, it was because of the volume of research that was presented. So like you just demonstrated in the journal, you see, it's not just the breadth. We cover music, we cover civil engineering, we cover the military, we cover politics. It's not just the breadth. It's also the depth of work that goes into the production of this journal. And so, like like Councillor Jones said, Councillor Jones, you gotta get a PhD because I keep calling you Dr. Jones.
Sam, we're listening. I'm just showing them some of the journals. Yeah.
Sam, are you done?
I think he's I think he's frozen again.
Well, let me take off from where Sam was talking about, but this time now from an individual perspective.
Okay.
You know, so you don't have to be teaching at a university to either become a member or just do an exploratory attendance at one of the conferences. Once you get to one of these conferences, you see the engagement of the participants, how they have prepared to come to the conference, and those presentations is one that gets you thinking about matters that perhaps you've never really thought about. The variety, scope, breadth, and depth of the various subject matters is really eye-opening to what people are thinking about Liberia. And a good thing about the LSE is that we have a variety of nationalities. One of the surprising things when you first come to the LSE is to see people across several countries who are thinking about things about Liberia, who are thinking about some of the structural matters that we have and how they can be attended to. And you know, even though Jackie said we should perhaps move on from some of the old journals, you know, you go back to 1969, for example, and there's an article about the traditions, history, and folklore of the Belly tribe. Now, this is one of the smallest group of our citizens, fellow citizens in Liberia. Not many people come into contact with fellow citizens who originated within that subgroup of citizens. And that article back then was an opportunity for folks to read about our fellow citizens and their traditions and their history and their folklore. And some of the surprising things. And across the journal, you'll see that the similarities amongst Liberians are much more common than the differences that sometimes we amplify more contemporarily. So attending a conference will be an exposition. If you're sort of reticent, you really don't have to say nothing. Just attend, observe, and see the range of subject matters, the variety of people, and what they're talking about. And so we really encourage people to make inquiries on how to attend this conference that is going to be April 21st to 23rd, 2022 at Texas Southern University in Houston. I'll just say one more thing about the conference. So one of my eldest brother is turning 70 on April 23rd in Liberia, and the family had planned a celebration. And I called them and go like, I've got to attend the LSA conference. Can we have it the following week? And thankfully, my brothers agreed. My brother, who's the person being celebrated, agreed. The rest of the brothers concurred. And so, because they understand the importance of participating in LSA to me, and extend them in the courtesy of having a party a week later, because I didn't want to have to be forced to make the choice between going to LSA and going to my brother's 70th birthday on April 23rd, 2022. But this conference is really engaging, and we really encourage people to participate, attend.
Just one thing if I could add, especially for us the younger folks, people are also willing to mentor you. There are people who are willing to mentor you, who take interest in your work, and they are willing to say, look, I can give you feedback. That is outside what if you are working with a committee to do your research. So they are able to serve as the first check on your work. You can sit with them, you can discuss with them, they will give you pointers to identify articles and that you can use to enrich your own work, which when it gets to your committee makes your work easier because it has in a way been already peer review. And so, which is what your committee now may just look at it and see. And the interesting thing about scholarship is, and this shouldn't scare anybody, is that no two scholars look at one work and come up with the same conclusion. We all have our own different viewpoints. So, but one thing is that it softens the task on your committee and make your journey easier because research can be lonely processing in institutions, especially for students. And so once you have someone you can talk to outside your committee, my own experience here, your committee is not going to run after you. Look, Sam, how far have you gone with this paper? They expect you now at that stage to be responsible for your own task. And so it's good to have someone else outside your committee picking up the phone, calling you, or sending you an email to just ask, how is the project going? Where are you now, my man? Look, we need to complete this thing, man. We need you to get this degree. A kind of push, which I found very useful in my case. And I think that should be very good too for any young person who's aspiring to be a scholar, not only a scholar who's doing academic work to take advantage of.
I think
Jackie?
we're all. I'm having a little problem with my internet service.
Well, good to have you back. Are you fully back, Jackie?
Yes.
Good.
Me?
Well, just, both Sam and I talked some about attending the conferences and some of the benefits, even if one doesn't intend to make a presentation. Opportunity to meet mentors, clearly opportunities to see the breadth and depth of current Liberian scholarly thinking, and emphasizing the fact that one does not have to be quote unquote an academic to be interested and participate. So back to you, Madam Host.
Well, I think Jackie is still having a problem.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we're hiccups, but yes. Keep talking.
Then she's gone, but well, maybe why Jackie is trying to get back. One thing we want to say is that we are already accepting proposals for the forthcoming conference. And if you went to the LSA website, which I just can't call off the top of my head here, you will see the call for papers there. And we don't ask for much. Yes, the call for paper asks for people to submit a 10-page kind of summary of your work. If you feel that to be something that you may not have the time to be, we encourage you to just send us an abstract. And we have a very good vetting team that can just look at your 250 word abstract and determine the value of your paper. And so that's all you need to do. And who to send it to? You can send it to either me or Jackie. My email is samwaijohnson@gmail.com. Or Jackie's email is jsb25@cornell.edu. You can send it to both emails or either email. We're going to receive your paper. And one thing I promise you is that we will respond. Once we receive the paper, we will respond to your acknowledgement receipt and we'll keep you updated of every stage of the process as the paper moves up the chain. You can get a response.
Yeah,
But
Sam, just adding that my experience has been, and I've had the opportunity to have submitted abstracts, um, that the committee is extremely responsive and fair, and can help you, especially if one is still trying to figure out the exact details of the problem, the research problem that they're attempting to focus on. The committee is very responsive with assisting any submission to meet the standard. Um, that's something to know. Uh, the subject matter is, I think, the only limit in terms of subject matters is it nexus to Liberia.
mhm,
But otherwise, it is entirely open. Uh, Health, socioeconomics, economics, political, legal, uh,
mhm,
citizenry,
mhm,
uh, ethno ethno-centered discussions about the peoples of Liberia. It's just wide open as to what one can present. This year, our guiding theme, uh, take a quick look here, is reassessing the past, charting new futures. And so that tells you that one can talk about our past, and also talk about some of the directions we ought to go down.
mhm.
Uh, Liberia clearly needs uh, a lot of uh, discussions about which directions we're going to take. Uh, our country, our nation, our people, we're still trying to find our way. Uh, and the more that people think about it, but also share. And that's the opportunity for the conference. And if one decides to publish for the journal, is to share our thinking, and perhaps provide ideas to other people who they can then go on and expand on uh, uh, for the future of our beloved country.
And just to give you a background to that theme, and that theme was chosen because of the significance of our bicentennial next year. So that is why we say we are looking back, reassessing the past as we go in from, which is a kind of strategic process in nation building. So we want to look at ourselves. Where have we? Who are we? Where have we come from? How does that explain who we are? And how can this inform or guide us as we go forward? And that is, and it doesn't have to be of any specific research tradition. We accept papers from economists. If you do statistical research like me, econometrics, we will be glad to have your paper to see you present. Or if you do ethnographic research, if you do participants observation research, just any research traditions, grounded theory, any of the research traditions that you choose will be highly welcome. Again, it's a moment for us to interact. It's not a moment to show off. So, like Councillor Jones said, people will be sitting in the hallway just say, look, or this is a good paper. Have you considered this question? I think this question will also add value to your paper. So it's not to say, prove to me that you know this work. No. And that is my own experience has shown me these conferences provide a basis for which you are able to develop your research portfolio. Because once you have people sitting in a kind of gathering like this, giving you feedback as you know them, you try to use them to rewrite, to sharpen the focus of your paper, which is very, very helpful. And I can't stop encouraging people to take advantage of it because it has benefited me extensively. My entire PhD dissertation went through LSA. It went through LSA, every stage of the process, from the proposal stage to the writing, the first draft, the second draft, the final draft. All were presented at LSA conferences or received feedback from scholars at LSA conferences. And all of those people who are my seniors never stopped making sure that I did this work to a logical conclusion. And like I said, especially at the PhD level, it can be very lonely. If you look at the stats in the United States, it is only 1 out of every 3 students that enter the PhD program completes a dissertation. meaning
Wow.
1 out of 3 gets the degree conferred. It's not that they cannot complete the coursework. No, it's the lonely journey of this thing called dissertation. We have Jackie back now, so we want to give her a show.
Yeah, I can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and
Yeah,
clear.
I had to go and get my phone because my in this rural area, once the wind starts to go, internet goes. So, but I was following closely, and I would like for us again to talk more about the conference, because it seems as if whenever when we hold the conference where there are a lot of Liberians, we get a lot of Liberians, but if we hold it somewhere else, it doesn't necessarily follow that they go there. And I think people are kind of hesitant to host the conference when they hear that, I mean, we've been hosted by Indiana University, Cornell, Rochester Institute for Technology, Ramapo, Rutgers, Temple. So when people hear that, they're saying, oh, but we don't have the money. And as Sam said, we need institutional commitment. But that's just one of many requirements, and so we ask people to get involved with the LSA. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We can strengthen an LSA, I mean, as one of the oldest organizations, and one that has one of the oldest or the second oldest journal. I mean, that's something that we can really be proud of. And people who are researching, not necessarily Liberians, but people who are researching about Liberia and adjacent areas, they can also take part in the Liberian Studies Association. Membership, we have different membership amounts for people who are, I would say, professors, and then we have retirees, and we have students. So if you go on the website, if they can show the PowerPoint, the first one, the website's address is there, and we can even put it in the stream. And also, last year, was it last year? No, it was this year. We had it by Zoom because of the COVID. And it was one of the most successful, because we had more than, I would say, 200 people watching. And it's on YouTube. If you go to YouTube Liberian Studies Association, you will find the 3 days of conferences, 3 days of presentations, discussions. They are on the Liberian Studies Association YouTube channel. So please, go there and watch it and become a member of the LSA. Get involved in the LSA. Participate, get to know people. Is a time of networking as well. You could find somebody just found Samuel, so you could find your long lost friend at the LSA. So it's really an important organization for Liberia, and a very effective one that aids in national development. So the theme of the upcoming one, we are having it at Texas Southern University is it Houston, Texas?
Yeah, Houston, Texas.
Yes. And we are soliciting abstracts. So if you feel that you have you would like to present, if you go to the Liberian Studies Association website, you will see that there are a lot of information about how you can submit your papers. Dr. Samuel Johnson, you can submit it to him. You can submit it to the Liberian Studies, and it can be forwarded to him. If Sam, if you could put the address there. I think we also have now.
Yeah.
We have one more Liberian Studies member, Dr. Banti Ziu, has joined us. Hello, Doc. How are you?
Hello, Jackie. Not quite doc yet. I'm still a doctoral candidate, but I'm
Okay.
working hard on finishing my PhD. Thank you.
Okay. So
The doctor in the making.
Yeah, doc in the making.
Yes.
Okay. Banti, we were just discussing about the impact of the Liberian Studies Association on national development, and
Yes.
also on research, and how the Liberian Studies Journal is a repository of knowledge about Liberia. But we would ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in the LSA.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for having us. As Jackie said, excuse the background noise. I have a newborn, a 4-month-old baby, so I'm diligently working, mothering, and also a student. Um, but I became involved in the Liberian Studies Association in 2018. My sister found a conference online. My sister is actually Dr. Tiwe Zayu Collins. My younger sister, she completed her PhD at Southern University in the May of 2019, right before the pandemic. So when she was working on her PhD, I'm working on my PhD, and so is my younger brother Elijah Zayu. And Tiwe found a conference, and she said, "Have you ever heard of LSA?" And we're like, "No." She says a conference, it's an organization for and about research and everything towards the development of Liberia. So I was like, okay. She said, let's register and go. We registered, and at that year was held in Rochester, New York. And so my sister and I attended. Then the next year, we attended the one that was in the Chicago area in 2019. That point, my younger brother attended with us, his wife, my sister. And it's just been a great experience to get that knowledge that we needed because as a person who's from Liberia and had to leave due to the war, my research is related to that, my dissertation research. So to go and get additional background information about Liberia from other professionals like Dr. Dunn and Dr. Gershani and other people who worked in Liberia in the past, it's been a life-changing experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Fancy. And before you came in, we were reading the list of the volume 43. And Banti's sister, Dr. Tiwe Zayu Collins, is the one who wrote the econometric analysis of civil war and economic development in Liberia, along with Ben Lukongo. So just want to put that out there. So we talk about the journal, and we Councillor Jones and Dr. Johnson talk at length about the importance to national development and how one can host the conference. I think at this point we are focusing now on the conference that will be held in Texas. And are you thinking about submitting an abstract first?
Um, I'm not sure. I may, I've presented part of my research at the last two conferences. So at this point, since I'm focused on finishing, um, I probably will not submit an abstract, but I do plan to attend because Houston is about 4 hours from where my parents live. They live in Louisiana. So Houston is like next door to home. So I want to encourage my father to attend. He has a PhD in chemistry. And when I told him, he's like, oh, yeah, I know the Liberian Studies Organization. We're like, Papa, you never told us about any of this. I know Dr. Dunn, Dr. E. Dunn. That's one of the first doctoral recipients from Liberia. I know him very well. I'm like, you never told us about any of this. So being that it's 4 hours from them, I plan to encourage him to attend with us, and I hope that he can connect with a lot of his colleagues. And my sister may submit a paper, and my brother is actually in Liberia, Elijah Zayu. He's doing his research. He was actually interviewing Samuel Todd today about his dissertation, Elijah's dissertation research questions. So he probably will present a part of it, send him a reminder as well. But I do plan to attend. I always look forward to attending.
Yeah, and we would encourage those of you listening, as Banti learned about it through her sister, and her father knew all along. And as people like to say on Facebook, share the show, share the news about Liberian Studies Association. We need young scholars, we need older scholars to mentor them. So we want people to tell another person about the Liberian Studies Association. If you have questions, the Liberian Studies Association has a website. If you put Liberian Studies Association, you will see the website. If you want to listen to the presentations of this past conference that we have virtual, Liberian Studies Association YouTube channel, and you can just sit there for the entire day and listen, or 3 days and listen if you feel that like you want to know more. Councillor Jones, the website, please. What is the website address?
Jackie, you put me on the spot. I don't have it.
I think liberianstudies@gmail.com.
Oh, you mean not the address, the email. Okay,
Oh yeah, the email. Is
Yeah.
that
Email
it?
address.
Yeah.
The email
Liberian
is,
Studies Association at gmail.com.
yes, at gmail.com. You know, you can send an email to ask about that you're doing research and you want to know more about the Liberian Studies Association. And basically, you know, I look forward to the conference because it's like family. You know, it's the LSA has a unique character, unlike some other associations or some other conferences that we go to where you present your paper and you leave. Year after year, we've seen people come, we've seen them stay, we've seen a build up. We have had death, like we just lost Dr. Kashoni. You know, we've had births, we've had I guess, oh yeah, engagements. We've had everything, and it is a family. You know, a family with the overarching theme of academic scholarly work. You know, so we go there as academics, but we go there as Liberians and as friends. So if you want to be part of this association and you want to know more, or you're thinking about hosting it in the future, Liberian Studies Association at gmail.com is the email. Write it down, share it, pass it. If you're listening and maybe you're a retiree and you but you have grandchildren who are doing research, Liberian Studies Association at gmail.com, and Councillor Jones will have a lot of emails soon, and then he can pass it on. Because yeah, you know, so it's really important that we build on the knowledge that has been there, you know, or that we can add on to that knowledge of the association. And so if you're thinking about going to Texas or presenting, I think the deadline is January
10th.
January 10th.
Yes.
So submit your paper. If you're thinking about hosting a panel, you know, if it's a roundtable panel, you know, January 10th is the deadline. So get your friends together and then try and see if you can submit. Maybe you want to submit along with Dr. Johnson or Banti or Councillor Jones. You can
exciting.
write.
I said it will be exciting. You know.
So Jackie,
these joint presentations, that is how people begin to write book volumes. And I benefited from that. Right?
I'm sorry, Sam. No, I just wanted to underscore that, you know, don't be afraid of the notion that these are academics, because I'm not an academic. You don't have to be associated with a university. Going back, I think it was Jack who made an earlier reference, or Sam, I remember, which about Dr. Dunn saying thinkers.
Yeah.
People who are thinking about Liberia and matters related to Liberia. I mean, obviously, you couldn't present like a letter like you were writing to your friend or your spouse or something, and it has to meet certain standards, but you don't have to be working on a PhD like Banti. You don't have to have a PhD like Sam. You just must be someone who's thinking about Liberia, matters related to Liberia, and prepared to present them in a format that meet the standards. You know, obviously, it must be well researched. The problem must be clearly identified. the writing must meet minimum standards for academic publication. But I think it's important to know that you don't have to be associated with a university, have a PhD, be working on a PhD. Just be a thinker related to Liberia. So I'm using my legal background to try to think about issues that arises out of law or connected to law in Liberia. I just wanted to make sure people didn't think that you had to be a doctor working on a doctorate or employed by a university.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Panty, you want to
Yeah,
jump in?
I love that. I love that aspect of thinkers. If you're a thinker of Liberia, and I love that because it's a very inclusive group. It's a very inclusive conference. And in the evenings, we all put our professor hats down and our working hats, and we engage in our great thinking and debating skills over food and drinks, and have a good fellowship as well after we have the daytime conference, and we fellowship throughout because as Liberians, that's just a part of who we are. So thank you for pointing that out, Counselor Jones, that is basically for thinkers. People should not be intimidated or be turned off thinking we're just going to be talking a bunch. We've had people, I know the presenters who were like people who came to train the military in Liberia. They had that experience. I was like so impressed with them because they were actual U.S. Army aspects training in Liberia were able to present their findings, or writers of poetry, writers of books, um, all that other information. So I think it is good that you pointed that out. Thank you so much. And hi, Sam, and hi, Counselor Jones. Sorry I didn't speak at the beginning.
Yeah. So the conference will be April 21st to the 23rd of next year. The theme is Liberia at 175th, reassessing the past, charting new futures. And it will be hosted by Dr. George Clay here, and his institution is Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. So for those of you who would like to present papers, individual presenters must send a 7 to 10 page early draft, excluding references of their paper. This draft must include an abstract, a statement of the paper's research problem, and the name, title, and institutional or organizational affiliation, and full contact details of the paper's authors. For those who would like to present roundtables, the proposal you must have 5 to 7 pages long and include an abstract, a statement of the paper's research problems, the names, titles, and institutional affiliations, and full contact details of all of those that are there who will be on the paper. And January 10th is the deadline. And so the abstract review committee, as we say, it is a scholarly organization, will review completed proposals using the following criteria: relevance and significance to conference theme, the rigor of the analysis, potential for practical, policy-oriented, tangible, innovative, and transformative outcomes. And conference presentation, they usually receive special consideration for publications in the LSJ. So students, the Liberian Studies Journal, sorry. Students, $75, academics, $125, retirees, $75. So we're going up now because things are increasing. Yeah, but as I said, please, those of you who are on this live, share the message about the Liberian Studies Association. It's an inclusive organization, one that we are not an organization that seeks to keep, as Banty and Councillor Jones and Dr. Johnson said, keep people out who are not scholars, but if you're a practitioner, you are welcome as well. And usually I'll entice you by giving you a little rundown. On Thursdays, it's meet and greet. So we eat and we hug each other and we welcome each other. And sometimes it is also the keynote address. And then on Friday, we have a whole day of presentations and interspersed with, of course, meals. And then it can also be the keynote, or it can be the reception, where everybody dress up and we come and we eat and we talk. And then Saturday again is another one. And then Sunday we try to leave, but some of us can leave because we really miss people. But it's a whole 3 days of really network, meeting people, discussing. You go in the hallway and you see people arguing, shouting, because we can't talk very low. We shout and we argue. So we ask you to join us. Yes, we have over 90 institutional members, but we have for the LSJ, but we have a lot of people. So we are having it in Texas. Come and join us. If you become a member and you would like to host it, we welcome that. You will submit a letter of intent, and then we'll go from there with your institutional backing. So we will say that please join us. And then when you join us, you will see that you will be asking yourself, why didn't I do this years ago? And the answer is because you didn't know until you heard us. Yeah. So Sam and I don't know if Dr. Johnson when he introduced himself, if he said that he was the vice president of the organization. Dr. Michael Wana is the president. Councillor Mahamadou F. Jones is the parliamentarian. Banti is former board member. I'm the secretary, and then we have Mrs. Inian Williams, who's the treasurer, and Franklin Weller, who's another board member. And am I missing anybody? And no, sorry, sorry, Sam. Dr. Samuel Johnson is a board member. Dr. Yolanda Covington Ward is the vice president. See, their mind is going a little bit. So my apologies, Dr. Covington Ward. So you see, we have a lot of people from all disciplines joining us. But as I can't see, so I don't know if there are comments there that we could read. Some comments. I'm on my phone, so I can.
There are comments on Facebook.
Okay.
I don't know if Dennis could put them on the screen, but from what I see here, Solufemi Adams, you got students, retires, and professors. What happened to the rest of us professionals, engineers, doctors, and lawyers, etc.? Dempster Yala said,
but we already said that. No, Sam, let's answer that. We already said that. We said that everybody is welcome. Scholars, practitioners, professionals, you're all welcome to the LSA. And we are saying that we're not saying that there's not a need, that maybe you want people out having the smaller organizations, but we are saying, why reinvent the wheel? We have the LSA, and let's strengthen the LSA as one of the oldest institutions, scholarly institutions on Liberia. Let's strengthen that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I'm a good example of someone who is a professional. I'm a lawyer, but not associated with any university. So that's the answer to that question. Sam, just 1 minute. Jackie laid out what the fees are. And if you look at the amounts spread over a year, because we meet once a year, our membership dues are once a year, $100 once a year in terms of what you get from that conference. You just, perhaps Sam can do some econometrics to show that in terms of value for your buck, it's incomparable. Just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah.
Sam, perhaps you should go ahead.
Yeah. And then Dempster Yella asked, how has the work or output of the LSA conferences impacted Liberia over the years? Well, what I can tell you is this from my own experience. Each time we publish the journal, because it has a direct relationship to Liberia, we send copies to Monrovia. We send copies to the library at the Capitol building, because we feel that the people at the legislature should take interest in these as they go about making laws. We send copies to universities in Liberia. And what I can tell you is there's a Raptel Pele, Dr. Pele now, dissertation is on this whole question of citizenship. How do we construct citizenship? and she wrote a dissertation. She just released a book. That work was sent to Liberia. And just these few days, I think over the last week, Dr. Pele was in Monrovia. She delivered a paper about that work to the Senate. I need that informed you, Dempster, that this whole bill is still going through the passing process at the Senate. And so they are still seeking out expert opinions. And so that's one way we impact the work of Liberia, because scholars from the organization are called in as reference experts. In the past, when the governance commission was being headed by Dr. Sawyer, I know that several of LSA people went to Liberia to support the work of the governance commission through research. George Kier, for example, went to Liberia to help to do some work on decentralization and the devolution of power, which led to the creation of government service centers across the country. So, I mean, we don't have much time, but I can go on listing, naming them. But basically, that is what we do. We do not go in and tell them to do it this way. We provide them the evidence, we provide them the data, and say, look, this is what the thinking is, this is what has happened, and this is what we think should happen, and this is why we think it should happen this way.
And another thing is that people, and we get that a lot. People say, "Oh, well, the LSA, what are they doing for Liberia?" And people just development is not just roads and highways and buildings. Development is also the development of the mind. Development of ways of thinking. Ways that you can envision innovating things. So when you say what have we done, we digitize a lot of the Liberian Studies Journal and send it to the University of Liberia. So they do have it there, and the students can have access to that. If when we were going through the articles, we had something on highway failure in Liberia by Samuka Kone and Kai Podolo and Augustus. Now, if you're reading about highway failure, yeah, Kai Podolo, yeah, and the Minister of Public Works, right? He's like, oh, okay, maybe I should read this, or maybe the engineer should read this and see why there's highway failure in Liberia. So these presentations in themselves are not going to create infrastructure, but they are going to inform those who are going to do the infrastructural work. So when you say what have we done, countless scholars, countless presentation, they have informed the work that is going on in Liberia. So I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
All right.
So Sam, just to expand a little bit on that, I think to expect a direct correlation between an article in a journal publication and something in Liberia, perhaps that would be extraordinary, because I don't think it happens anywhere in the world. But the body of work, the thinking processes, the development of ideas that can then be implemented by the folks who actually do the implementation, really works to help to develop the country. I'm sorry, Sam, please.
No problem. Just to re-emphasize that there is nothing greater than creating the human capital for the country, and that is what LSA does. It creates Liberian human capital. It creates specialists in fields that concerns Liberia. And you can put dollar value on that so easily. Okay, so let me just read two of the comments still here. Stephen Johnson Page the second says, long time, Sam. You see, Aboke Jaja, what if the submission doesn't relate to one's institution? I think he's saying, what if you are in a particular sector working and your submission doesn't connect to your sector?
But you can submit it still. You
can submit at Harvard. Yeah, you can submit. You can submit as an independent researcher or as a private citizen. You do not have to be tied to any specific institution. So Councillor Jones is an excellent example here. He's not tied to an academic institution. He doesn't present as someone from a law firm. He presents as someone with research interest in Liberia. Yes. So I would encourage you to develop your paper. Don't worry about your attachment. Just submit the paper, and then we can move from there. And then, okay. There's one on the screen now. Sam Wallow said, I presented at the 2013 or 2014 event in Chicago on job creation. It was appreciated, and I was encouraged to submit my idea to the government of the time. I declined. The group tends to lean too heavily towards academic theory versus practical solutions to the real world problems. I have a master's, not a PhD, a ton of business experience. I will urge the group to exercise a little more balance.
Oh, so you want to answer that?
Well, I
What?
understand Sam's. Go ahead, Constable.
Oh, no, no, Sam, I'll defer to you and then say something, please.
Now, I want you to come with a practical experience. You're more of a practitioner than me, an academic.
Well, so it's well taken. Finding this balance is something I think that's ongoing, and I think what would be interesting to the writer is perhaps if he had indicated the reason for the declination of the submission, uh, because that would have been an opportunity for people who may not have thought about the things that he outlined to think about, and so but this is a balance I think that the LSA continues to try to do throughout, in terms of not limiting topics to any sector and being quite inclusive. Uh, and so one wishes you will come back because any assistance and participation in trying to find that balance. So, for example, if a person didn't want to submit um, something directly to the government, by publishing it, I think my colleagues on this panel pointed out the publications are made available to the institutions in Liberia. That would be one way to do it if you didn't want to write a letter, dear Mr. So and so, here's something I recommend by publishing it. But I think LSE really thrives to figure out how to have this balance between quote unquote pure academic and things that outline how they can be implemented.
I
Yeah,
agree. I also wanted to add, it is also always a challenge as an academia, as an academic person now, and as a social worker by trade, right? So I've been a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker for about 15 to 17 years. And now I'm a graduate student as a doctoral candidate. And so my work is kind of facing that is how to use that theory um, of parenting, of migration theories, theories of acculturation. Those are things that I'm studying in my research, but how to look at practical solutions. My focus is the diaspora population, right? So how to look at those academic theories and how to find practical solutions for it. And that's always a balance for me as well, trying to seek out that balance. So thanks for pointing that out. And as Colonel Jones say, it would be great for you to come back and share ideas with us because I know we're open and see how we can do our best to impact the people themselves.
So Sulufemi Adams, but we've already read that you got
yeah.
students, retirees, and professors. What happened to the rest of us professionals, engineers, doctors, and lawyers? And we said that all are welcome. You know, yeah. Then it says some people keep saying that Liberians don't write. They may not know about the Liberian Studies Journal. What do you say to them? To them 53 years after the establishment of the LSA? Uh, that Liberians don't write? Is it? I mean, is it creative fiction or? I mean, if you say they don't write, are you talking about scholarly work? Because of course, the Liberian Studies Journal gave testament to the fact that we do write. As the second oldest journal, we do write. And as co-host of the Liberian Literary Hour, the Literary Hour on Focus on Liberia, I would like to say that the first African novel written in English in 1892 was written by a Liberian. The second African novel written in English was written by a Liberian. The first one, Guyana Pau, and the second one, Love in Ebony. So it's just that I guess we haven't tooted our own horn, you know, so people don't know that. And people were astonished when we discussed those two books on the air, you know. So like Liberians write, you know, and it is up to us to be able to spread the word and say, when someone say, oh, Chinua Achebe, and then we can say 60 years before Achebe, we had Charles Cooper, you know, and things like that. So no, Dennis, Liberians do write, and you're right when you say that when we're discussing literature, especially for me, creative writing and literature, Liberia is left out. And I think it's time to bring Liberia right back in, you know, because we did blaze the trail. I mean, we had Edwin Barclay, you know, who was a poet, you know. I mean, we had people writing um, uh, uh, um, libretto for Liberia and things like that. So I think that Liberians, right, we just need to, that's why we need the LSA, so that other Liberians can come and join and listen when we're discussing and say, oh, I did not know that. Because no matter how many times I go to the LSA, there's always something I'm learning. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. You know, so we will urge all of you to, as we say, spread the word, and let's strengthen, let's grow, and let's strengthen the LSA. Because we're all getting older. We need to pass the torch on to you guys. So please join us and let us strengthen the LSA. So I would say that the hour is far spent. I'm sorry we had some technical problems with my internet, but I would say we should go around the virtual room, and maybe we could leave with parting comments to our viewers. We will start with Banti first, and then move around. Yeah.
Thank you again. I apologize for my tardiness. I was taking care of the baby. But my parting comment is that um, if you're interested in anything related to Liberia and want to learn more about Liberia's history and interested in the future of Liberia, I would definitely encourage you to get involved with the Liberian Studies Association, and definitely encourage you to attend a conference and just continue to keep Liberia at your forefront. So I think the love of Liberia is the focus of what keeps me involved. And I just want to encourage everybody who has that love of Liberia to get involved. Thank you to my colleagues, Colonel Jones, Jackie, and Mr. Dr. Johnson, for always being there for me. And I'll always be there for you guys in the organization as well. And it's been great seeing you all today.
Kiss the little guys for us.
That's our LSA baby.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Right. So Banti, both my grandfathers were in the old Liberian militia, and both of them became colonels and went above that to generals. I haven't ever joined the army, so. but I think people also need to realize, our viewers, listeners need to realize, that you don't have to be there to present a paper to attend the conference. I think Banti pointed out, and I want to underscore that the opportunity to learn about things that perhaps you hadn't ever thought about Liberia, hear things from a perspective you may not have considered, and just realize the breadth and depth of people who are thinking about various aspects of Liberia, pointing out that reassessing the past always helps you to see the directions for the future. And I don't believe that any Liberian would disagree that there are many directions for the future that we still need to figure out how best to go down those roads for the good and benefit of the country. So you really ought to consider attending the conference. The fees are extremely affordable, and we're really looking forward to April 21 to 23rd in Houston, and we hope that listeners who never consider coming to the conference will do so. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson?
Thank you, Jackie. I think my parting comment will go off of Sam Wallow's point. We try to strike a balance between theory building and practice. And in as much as you came there and hear a lot of us talking about theories, is because we have PhDs, and that is what we fancy ourselves about. But in terms of publication, I can tell you that if you look in the journal, we've published a lot of work that are beyond just theory building. There are people who are just in practice. There's a case of the market with me and microfinance. Yes, if you look there, you see my own paper, but there is also another paper in that same volume. I don't remember the volume too well. It's been a while. You see another paper that is exclusively, that wasn't done by a PhD. All right. It wasn't done by a PhD. It was someone who was reflecting on her own practice, her own work in Liberia, as someone who was supporting Liberian macro entrepreneurship. So it's just to say that we try to strike that balance. We know the importance of reflection in our own works. So from that background, we encourage you, don't feel excluded, don't feel that we are pushing you out. But that is what PhDs do, buddy. You know, it's just like the guys who play soccer. We gather, what we talk about? We'll talk about football. We'll talk about strategies. We'll talk about strikers. That is what we talk about, those of us who play soccer. And so you will see it once you have a large gathering of PhDs. But I can tell you, if you are come since then, you would have seen that clearly laid out. So anybody who's thinking that it's only for PhDs, no, it's not a PhD exclusive club. It's a club for everyone who's interested about Liberia, writing about Liberia, thinking about Liberia. That is what the LSA is about.
Yeah, I echo what everybody on the panel has said. You know, LSA is for every one of us. You know, it's not a place where if you don't have a paper, you don't belong. You can come to the LSA the first time and not present a paper. You can come the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth time just to listen. You know, you do not have to present a paper. Yeah, it might probably enhance the discussion, but so's your presence. You know, if you're there, you're enhancing the association. So we want to ask you again to join us, join the Liberian Studies Association. I had just pasted the website address, and then I think I put there the website, so you can go and listen to all of the presentations from the last conference, you know, and be informed, you know, and see how many panels there were, how many discussions, you know. I mean, discussions went on. We were glued to our computers from in the morning, like 8 o'clock, straight till 5. We're arguing, you know, about Liberia. And that's also development, you know, to develop the mind. So even if you're in Liberia right now and you don't have access to the journal, but you have access to the website, go and look at the presentations. And as I said, we have old copies of the Liberian Studies Journal, $25. So you can purchase them. They're here up to 1990. You know, a lot of them, you know, about things that maybe you're doing research on. But we want to thank you for joining us today. We want to say, pass the word on, you know, about the Liberian Studies Association. Get involved, you know, and we'll leave you again with the signature song. And we will say, whether you are a professional, whether you're an academic, whether you're just there to watch, to network, we're all Liberians. Lift our country up. Be safe. Mask up. I always end it that way on my literary hour. We are all Liberians, so we lift our country up, and we are one people. So good night, and thank you.
We are Liberians.